In this video, we're going to look at a few more tags that are intended to give our document some structure. Now, I know that's probably not the most exciting thing, but it's awfully important because these are the tags that are going to help you when you are working on some sort of website or web application and you say, boy, I really wish that this piece of text or this image or this hunk of content was someplace else. These are the tags that are going to be instrumental in helping you solve those layout problems. So this could have been called layout, I suppose, but for now I'm just going to call it document structure. Layout implies probably some CSS as well, and we haven't covered CSS yet. But so I have here the paragraph tag, which you've already seen, the break tag, the div tag, and the span tag. So I'm going to quickly illustrate the difference between those. They do, again, similar things. I try to group tags that do similar things together, if you haven't picked up on that. But before I go any further at all, let me ask you a question. Which of these four tags is a self-closing tag? What do you think? That was my drum roll sound. The drum roll is of course, the break tag. The break tag is a self-closing tag. Why? Because it has no closing complementing second part. The paragraph tag has an opener and a closer, and content goes in the middle. Div is the same thing. Span is the same thing. The break tag simply exists as its own thing, much like the image tag that we just saw. So I'm going to jump over to my laptop now, and I'm going to show you the paragraph, break, div, and span. And now that we have the notion of tags having semantic meaning, I think now is a great time for me to explain that paragraph and div are in many ways interchangeable. However, the paragraph tag has a different semantic meaning than the div tag. The paragraph tag implies that it's going to be holding some language that's meant to be read by a human being, whereas a div tag is simply a container to hold some stuff for any number of possible purposes, right? So it could hold images, it could hold other div tags used to provide layout and structure. So that's really the difference between the paragraph tag and the div tag. You'll find that the div tag is probably the most common tag on a web page. All right, going to jump over to my laptop now. Picking up where we left off, I'm going to make a copy of work 2 with a right mouse click and a copy and a right mouse click and a paste and a rename of work 3. There we go. And I want to use this work3.html file to illustrate the use of the paragraph tag, the break tag, the div tag, and the span tag. So let's say, for example, I want to have a paragraph between the h1 tag and my first image. My paragraph tag here will be look on the bright side of life. Right? That's my paragraph. And you can see that that is meant to be text that is read. So paragraph tag seems appropriate there. If I were to open that in the default browser, I can see that I have look on the bright side of life and this gigantic smiley face here. Now again, I'm not really worried about layout too much, and I'm actually going to get rid of the second image tag. That one has a broken link. Remember, I had a dash in there and that broke it all. I'm going to delete that second one. So don't be concerned at this point that, okay, this text looks too big and this text looks too small and this smiley face is way too big. We haven't really learned how to size things yet, but for right now, I just want to illustrate a couple things about just general structure before we get on to that other stuff about sizing and tuning things. Notice that because I said, look on the bright side of life, there was a line break there followed by the smiley face. So if I had not included that, let's see what that would have looked like. If I had not put the paragraph tag in there, and then I preview that, then I have this effect where I see my text, look on the bright side of life, and then the smiley face. So the paragraph tag introduced a line break that brought the smiley face below here. We would call that a block. So the paragraph tag gives me a block, and the block ends with a line break. So I could have achieved that same effect by putting a div tag around my text, div, and I'm going to delete that and put my closing div tag over here. And there you can see that I have this paragraph and then a line break. But I've used a div tag. So the div tag and the paragraph tag seem to be doing basically the same thing. And as far as the way they look, that would be true. So they serve similar purposes. But div can be used. Let's say I wanted to hold. A combination of an image and some text. So don't worry, be happy. And I'm going to close that div tag here. And I'm going to change this back to a paragraph tag because I like that. That seems like an appropriate use of a paragraph tag for me. Right? So I have learned some new tags, paragraph, look on the bright side of life, and then I have this combination of things. I have the div tag, and I have the words don't worry, be happy, and keep on trucking. So we're going to see the difference between the different effect of this. You should, as you work on this, as you get more comfortable with the paragraph tag, the break tag, the div tag, and the span tag, you should be able to do this work and anticipate what the browser will do. If you can do that and your anticipation is correct, then you know how the tags work. If you're just kind of typing and following along and say, well, I don't know what it's going to do, then that's pause for concern, right? So there's our image tag. So I would expect that my browser would show this H1 tag, this paragraph. I'm probably going to see the div tag and the with the image and don't worry, be happy on the same line. And then I expect that there will be a line break and I'll see keep on trucking. Let's see if I'm right. And there we go. We have these two things on the same line and then keep on trucking below. Right? Well, what if I wanted to conceptually keep these two things together, but I really wanted there to be a break between the image tag and don't worry, be happy. And I'm going to turn off my Explorer just for a second. there's my end of my image tag. I could put a break tag right there, right? Or right there, or right there. So the placement isn't so important, as far as what line it's on. It's the sequence. Image tag, line break, don't worry. And I'll throw in another line break just to make the point. Break tag, be happy. And then this whole section will be done, and it will be followed by keep on trucking. Let's save that, and we'll open it in the default browser. And there we have the expected outcome. So the div tag here conceptually wraps all of those pieces together, but the line break is forcing the blocking break, break, break. Give me some carriage returns at the end of each of those things. That leaves me with span, and span is the tag that you will probably use the least often, but when you need it, you'll be happy that you know about it. A span can be used to join two things together without a line break, or join multiple things together without any sort of line break implied at the end. So if I were to change this div tag to a span, I'm going to see that keep on trucking is going to come immediately after be happy, right? Because I've got the span works like a div, but it has no line break. Let me say that one more time. The span groups things together conceptually like a div tag does, but there's no line break implied at the end of the span. So when I save that and I open it in the browser, and you can see that keep on trucking here is right next to be happy, whereas before it was below. And if that was too subtle, let me just do it again. I'll change this back to a div. And I will preview that. And there you can see that the div forced that line break. Okay, paragraph tag, break tag, div tag, span tag, they all do really similar things. And again, which one of these things is the self-closing tag? The break tag, of course, because all the other ones have a beginning, an end with content in the middle. A break tag simply stands on its own. This next tag is really what made HTML special in the first place. Everything else here has been about structure and cosmetic embellishment of the text, adding semantic meaning to the text. But this next tag, when it was introduced, was revolutionary. Here it is. It's the anchor tag, designated by the letter A. We would call it a link or a hyperlink, but in the original language, way back when HTML was young and the internet was young, these were called anchors. So an anchor is what allows you to link or connect or have a hypertext reference, href, a hyperlink to another document. And you can see by the ambiguity in the names here that this was an old idea that was called different things over time. But this is a really, really powerful idea. The idea that a document can link to another document through the internet. So it is this collection of web pages and web applications that connect to other web pages and other web applications that came to be known as the World Wide Web. So kind of a big idea. And I'm going to illustrate for you how the anchor tag can be used to connect multiple HTML files or reference multiple HTML files. So you can look forward to that in the next video. Here it comes. So we've been learning some new tags. And your Visual Studio Code environment probably has multiple tabs at the top right now. I'm going to close those tabs. I'm going to also click on the File Explorer tab here and get a quick peek at what we have so far. We have our images folder with one image in it. We have hello.html, hello.txt, which we really don't need anymore, right? In fact, why don't we delete that right now? I'm going to right mouse click and choose delete. And my PC is asking me, are you sure? Hit the confirmation button there, move to the recycle bin. And now I have these collection of pages. What if I wanted to have a single page that would allow me to review my work so far by linking to work, work 2, and work 3? That would give me a sort of index or menu for what I wanted to do. So I'm going to call this page, this new page, I'm going to call it menu. So I will start, and because I don't want to confuse myself here, I'm going to start by using a copy of hello.html. I'm going to right mouse click that, choose copy and paste, and I'm going to rename this to be menu. And inside, I'm going to double click on menu. And one of the things I do when working in VS Code is it's very easy to end up with lots and lots of tabs open at the top. So I have a sort of a nervous tick of closing anything that I'm not using. That helps me stay focused on one thing at a time. I'm going to call this my menu. And I'm going to call this h1 tag my menu. And in my paragraph tag here, I'm going to just delete that whole thing. And I'm going to have here the anchor tag, right? And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see that real close. The anchor tag has an opening tag and a closing tag, and the first, the content of the tag is going to be what the person sees. So if I were to go to work here, I can see that was when I was learning about bold and paragraph and italic and strong. So over here in menu, and I'm in that special spot, I'm going to specify the words marking up text. Okay. And then my anchor tag needs an attribute. So inside the opening tag here, I'm going to type in href, which is short for hypertext reference. And here I could use either an absolute reference or a relative reference. Since I'm working over here in my local workspace, it's okay for me to use a relative reference. So I'm going to call this one work.html. I'm going to hit save. And we're going to add some more in, but let's see how this works. I'm going to right mouse click this and open in the default browser, and I'm going to look at my menu, and when I click marking up text, I am navigated over to work.html in my workspace, and I can use the back button to go back to my menu. Right? Pretty good, right? So this was revolutionary back in the day, the idea that we could have hypertext documents that reference other documents. All right, I'm going to shrink my text just a little bit, and I'm going to make another anchor tag, anchor. And the next thing we learned about was in work 2, and work 2 we learned about the image tag. So the image, I'm going to say the img tag, right? And just having that text alone isn't enough. You have to specify where it goes. So that's be href equals work2.html. And you can actually see that Visual Studio Code, because these are local, it knows what the correct answer is, and it's giving you some autocomplete. So you could actually click on that. And I'm going to do one more, and this is going to be not quite right. Now I was tempted to copy paste, but I'm going to type it because I think it's educational to do so. And the last thing we worked on was work 3, which was IS. That was document structure. So document structure, right? Okay. Now I'm gonna preview this, and we're gonna see how it looks. And you say, oh, oops, that's not quite what I wanted. I wanted like these to be a list, or I wanted them to be on top of each other. There's actually a tag called the list tag, but we haven't learned about it yet. So for right now, I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to look at this. I'm going to say, well, what would be my next best choice? A paragraph tag would not be the best choice because these are links. They're not really meant to be read like an essay. I could specify 3 div tags, but that would imply that these were all like completely unrelated, or at least somewhat unrelated, and they are kind of related. So I'm going to put a break tag in here at the end of each. And save this and open it in the default browser. That's a little bit better. I can go to the learn about marking up text, the image tag, document structure. Good. What if I wanted more space in between the links? Well, there's lots of ways to do that, but a simple, quick way is to just use a second break tag. So I need 2 break tags. Now I have more space. What if I wanted to somehow group all these together, collect these together so that I could think of them as one big thing? Well, for that, I would put them all together in a div because they are all common to each other. They are all items that are providing my menu. This is not totally necessary, but I think it's a good illustration of why we might use a break tag and a div tag. And so I'm just reinforcing what we've already talked about. Let me open this up in the browser. There we go. Great. All right, so in this video, I demoed the use of the anchor tag, and it can be used to link a document to another document by creating a anchor or a hyperlink or a hypertext reference if you want to use really old terminology. All right, let's see what else we can learn about.